Yes? No? Oh, well, here we go. I'm going to put this away. And we are going to start with finding the product. That means to multiply. We're going to multiply a monomial times a polynomial, or this one is a binomial. Remember, monomial, binomial, and trinomial, they're all polynomials. Okay? So, it's just like distributing. It's just like when you have numbers and you distribute. So you're going to multiply that x times the first term and x times the second term, and we're going to write it out. You may not necessarily need to write it out, but I'm going to write it out. That's what happens when you multiply the x times both terms. And then you have to go in and you have to make each term simple. So let's look at this one. I have x times 7 times x squared. What should that term actually look like? 7x what? Cubed. So that becomes 7x cubed. And then how would I write this one? Instead of x4, I put the 4 in front. And that's the proper way to write it. And then you're done. That's all you can do. Okay? Now this one is a monomial, so you take the whole thing, the whole 3x squared, and I recommend that you change any subtraction to adding the negative. And you're going to take this whole thing and you're going to multiply by each of these terms. Okay? So I'm going to write the first one out. 3x squared times 2x cubed. That's the first one. I'm going to put a plus sign. I'm going to do the next one. 3x squared times negative x squared. Put a plus sign. Then you have 3x squared times 4x. And you put a plus sign. And then you do 3x squared times negative 3. Then you have to go through and simplify each of the terms, which are the things that are, separated by a plus sign. So this is all multiply. You can multiply in any order. So I'm going to do 3 times 2, the coefficients. 3 times 2 is what?
6.
6. And then this is where you have to think for a second. I have x times x, 2 x's, and I have 3 more x's. So how many x's do I have altogether? 5. X to the 5th. Now, please be honest. Do you understand where I got x to the 5th? Just want to make sure. X squared would be x times x. X cubed would be x times x times x. That's 5 x's. Okay? All right, for that term. All right, let's do this a little quicker here. We have 3 times negative 1, so it's negative 3. And we have x squared times x squared, which is how many x's being multiplied?
4.
X to the 4th. This one here, 3 times 4, we multiply the coefficients. We have x squared times x. You need to pay attention or don't sit on the couch, okay? X cubed. Plus 3 times negative 3 is negative 9x squared. All right, and that's your final answer right there. Is that standard form? How come? The exponents are decreasing. Yes. Okay? All right. Now, we're going to multiply binomial times binomial. Binomial times binomial. Your parents, if you ask them, I bet they would know what FOIL was. Something that you do so much in algebra that you don't forget it. And they might not remember how, but they might remember the term, FOIL. Okay? Now, since we were young, your parents and me, there's a new method which is beautiful. It's called the box method, table box. I like to call it a box. So we're going to do both ways because you got to see both ways. Okay? So I have a binomial times a binomial. I'm going to use the box method. So I'm just going to make a box. It's not huge, but not too small. And I'm going to cut it into 4 sections. I'm going to take my first binomial, which is a plus 3, and write a here and 3 here. They're both positive, so I don't need to write that plus. They're both positive. And then I'm going to write this binomial and split up as 2a and 1 there. Now, when you're finding area or you're multiplying together, how do you find the area of this particular box right here? You would do 2a times a, right? What is 2a times a? 2a squared. So that's what you put in this box. And then we need to find the area of this box. So I do 2a times 3, which would be what? 6a. And then you come down here, 1 times a, that inside there would be 1a, or just a. And then this box would be 1 times 3, which is 3. Now you're almost done. You write what's in those boxes as a sum. Last step. What's one more thing we have to do to finish this polynomial? Yeah, you got to combine the a's. How many a's do we have? 7a. So we have 2a squared plus 7a plus 3. And you're done. That's using the box method. Yes?
I remember doing this a while ago, but I don't remember doing it with more than 4 squares. Is it possible to do it with more than 4 squares?
I'll show you. Okay, now we're going to do FOIL. And some people prefer FOIL. What FOIL stands for is first, outer, inner, last. So I'm going to rewrite these two binomials here. A plus 3 and 2a plus 1. Most of us here at the high school use box, but your teacher, you might have a teacher someday, if you're moving or whatever, that doesn't, and you have to know FOIL. Okay? So, the F means you multiply the first two terms together. A times 2a. What is a times 2a?
2a squared.
Do you all see that? It's 2a squared. I'm just going to write that down. 2a squared. And I'm going to put an F above here because that's my first terms. You're going to add to that the O, which stands for the outer two terms. A times 1. A times 1, I'll just write it as 1a. That's my O. Let me see if I can do this without, it's going to be kind of messy. All right, then the I stands for the inner two terms. These two right here. What's 3 times 2a? So I'm going to write plus 6a. That's my inner. And then I'm going to add to that the last two terms in the binomials. 3 times 1, which is what? 3. And then I combine like terms. And what am I going to end up with? The same thing, right? Box versus FOIL. It doesn't matter. Okay, let's use the box for this one. We're going to do one more. I want you to try it. Oh no, I'm going to show you how to set it up first. You still put x and 4. They're both positive. But this, you have to put 2x and you have to put -1 because it's a minus. So I want you to go through and do the area of each of the little boxes in there and then come up with the product or the answer. not too bad, huh? So, where? Yes, it would be. Yes, and you guys were looking at it like, what? Thank you. Got up at 5. I was swimming at 5:30. I get a little tired. Correct me. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, Garrett, where'd I lose you?
I don't see how you got 2x.
2x times x. So 2 times x is 2x squared. I don't want to move on unless you're solid with this. Any other questions? Okay, there's not too much more.
Like both methods for the test.
I don't know that you have to show me. I haven't seen the quiz yet, so I'm going to make you practice both in homework a little bit. Mostly I'll let you do the box, but you need to do a couple of FOIL, okay? So let's just do a FOIL here real quick. We're going to do a FOIL real quick. So the F stands for what? First two. What's 4a times a? Okay, does everybody see that that's 4a squared? 4a times a. The first two is 4a squared. That's F. Then what do? Then you do the outer. 4a times 2 equals what? 8a. That's the outer. And then you do the inner. 3 times a is 3a. And then you do the last. 3 times 2 is what? 6. And then you combine the like terms. Cool? Okay. So either method. Now, you're going to get some stuff here where you're going to multiply a trinomial times a binomial. It's doable. I just, for some reason in my head, when I have this, I like to put the binomial in the front. And then I'm just going to rewrite it. It doesn't matter. You don't have to. But for me, it just helps me keep it straight. Now, what you do here is you have to multiply 2a times all three of these things. And then you have to add to that 3 times all three of these things. So it's kind of a long thing you're going to have written out. So I'm going to start by multiplying 2a times all three of those things. So let's talk about it. What's 2a times a squared? 2a cubed. So I did that first one. Then I got to do 2a times 3a. 2a times 3a, which would be what? 6a squared. A times a is a squared. And then I got to do 2a times negative 4. Negative 8a. And I'm going to do this part in this different color. Now I'm going to do 3 times all of these. So I have plus 3a squared plus 3 times 3a, which is 9a, plus 3 times negative 4, which is negative 12. With me so far? Okay. Now we got to just go through and combine like terms. Is there any other a cubed in this whole thing? No. So that's part of my answer. Is there another a squared in this whole thing? There's 6a squareds here and 3a squareds here. How many a squareds do I have altogether if I add them? 6a squared and 3a squared. I have 9a squared. I'm not multiplying them, I'm adding them. So I have 9a squared. Here I have negative 8a and 9a. So how many a's do I have when I add those together? Just one a. You can just write a or you can write 1a. It doesn't matter. And then the last thing I have to put in here is negative 12. And there's my answer. Okay? Almost done. I promise. Now, Chuck asked me a question earlier. Can you do the box method with a more than a 2 by 2? Sure you can. We have a what? A 3 by 2 here, don't we? So let's make kind of a long box and divide it into 3. So you can do this method or you can do this method. So up on top here, I'm going to change these all to adding a negative. I'm going to fill out what's in the first one. 2x squared goes here, negative x here, negative 2 here. That's the trinomial. Then I'm going to put these two right here, 3x and negative 1. So here's the trinomial, here's the binomial. Then we go through and do each box. The first box is going to be 3 times 2, which is 6, and x times x squared, which is what? X cubed. 6x cubed in that first box. Then you go through and do all the rest of them. This is really a negative 1, isn't it? 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. X times x is x squared. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6x. This becomes this times this, which is negative 2x squared. Negative 1 times negative 1 becomes positive x, or 1x, however you want to look at it. And this becomes 2. And to finish it, which we don't have to do, you just kind of write it all out and combine like terms. The only things you would combine are these two and those two. Can you see that? So I can just do that real quick. 6x cubed. These two combined together would give me negative 5x squared. So I did that, I did that, I did that. Plus negative 5x plus 2. There you go, Chuck. Yep. Okay. I'm not going to do this whole problem. I'm just going to set it up. A rectangle has dimensions x plus 3 and x plus 5. What does dimensions mean? What are these they're giving us? The what and the what? Length and the width. So in the rectangle, they're giving us the length and the width. How do you find the area of a rectangle? This times this, right? So I got to put this in parentheses because they're binomials. So I'm going to do length times width, or however you want to do width times length, equals my area. You would FOIL these out or box them to get your polynomial. You can't come up with a number here. You can just come up with a polynomial. Look how fast I can do this in my head after so many years. That's your answer. You'll get there.